This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for another entertainment podcast. And I podcasted with Sarah Milanovich, oh boy, 2 years, I would think already, or maybe even longer. I was just connecting with Cafe Lena and the musicians in the New York Hudson Bay area. And so a lot has happened since then, Sarah. So since I don't have the exact date, just fill us in. How's life?
It's it's definitely still a rodeo, and yeah, I think we haven't spoken since way back in the before times. But things are happening now, and we're not, of course, the future is incredibly uncertain right now, but in so much as we're having a summer of it, and I've put out a new album at the end of June, have done a few shows behind it with my band Daisy Cutter, and the album is called Northeast, and very, very happy to finally get that out after a long wait, including, of course, 2020. So that's it's definitely exciting to have it out there and to just be proceeding and seeing what is going to unfold in terms of the future. And knock on wood, fingers crossed, we'll hopefully be able to continue in a positive direction.
Well, and I've been telling our listeners for the last year, and even more so now that we are slowly coming out of this pandemic, and hopefully we're going to stay out of it. Although we just got some news here in Ohio yesterday that they're asking us to be careful where we go. So I don't like the sound of that. I hope it doesn't mean that we're going to close shop for a while again. But what I think is really important is that individuals like yourself, you keep working on your craft even when there's a shutdown. And obviously, you did that because you just released a new album. So, what was it like this past year when you couldn't get out on the stage and perform?
Well, it was surreal, and it was beyond the complete upending of life as we touring musicians knew it. It was also, financial hardship and locked being locked in your house and all of that, which a lot of us encountered, regardless of whatever industry we were in. But as an artist, the thing that struck me the most was the absolute loneliness of a lot of it. And I'm sure a lot of folks encountered that in their personal lives as well, because it's just not being able to get out and see people, apart from the social aspect of it. But when part of your craft involves interacting creatively with other people in real time in the same space, all the marvelous technology that we have, like we're using right now,
Right.
it was a stopgap, and a lot of us took advantage of it and did live streams and really tried to connect with people however we could. And for all of the advantages of that, there really was no substitute for in-person collaboration, for in-person concerts, and just that sense of not being able to be with your community of musicians and your community of listeners, and just the greater music and creative and artistic communities in general, really, really felt like we were all just kind of, um, semi exiled
Yeah.
in a way. And there was really no digital substitute for that.
Exactly. And I know in the beginning, a number of my musician friends, when they started doing uh, Zoom podcasts and performing, they were unhappy with the sound quality that was coming through Zoom. And so a number of them actually stopped right after starting because they didn't want their music to be heard in a poor manner. And for myself as a listener, I sort of enjoyed having so many online concerts going on. Um, but the one thing that I will say is that there were tip jars, and too many of the performers ended up with empty tip jars. And I could not do that. It's like if I was coming to see you in a concert, I'd be paying for a full price ticket. So, what if I put a couple of dollars into that tip jar? Um, it was still going to be a wonderful evening for me. So, to our listeners, if you're going to listen to music, pay for it. Make sure that you follow that musician and band around so that you know when they're going to be in your area. So, tell us a little bit about the album that just came out.
So the album is titled Northeast, and it's very much in the alt country vein, genre speaking. And I grew up listening to a lot of older country music and a lot of bluegrass and folk traditions as well. And those are the musical traditions that really shaped me as an artist. And the thing that really stuck with me as I began becoming more of a songwriter is the ability of those traditions to tell stories that were so crystalline in their description of place and the people in it and time, and to really just encapsulate that in a 3 or 4 minute song. And I thought the craft and the art of that was so compelling. But it really struck me as I was starting to do more and more of my own writing, how many of those stories took place in the South and out West. And there's all this kind of folklore and mythology of those areas of the country, and the mythology of the road and of people traveling from place to place and of people being in a place. And I thought, well, up here, and this includes Ohio as well, we have a lot of the same stories and a lot of the same human experiences and hardships and topography and geography, and also more snow.
Yeah.
It's just a heck of a lot colder. And I thought, well, I would like to write about that. So that is the kind of general theme of the album. And the cover art of the album was actually a photograph taken by a friend of mine of an old loading dock at an abandoned fiberglass factory in my hometown in upstate New York's Mohawk Valley. So it's kind of all tied in there.
And you are right. We all have certain traditions in the towns that we live in. And folklore is just that. They're the stories of who we were when we were younger. I know my youngest son, who is 30, there are times he'll go, I can't believe that happened to you because you don't seem to be that old, but the stories that you're telling me sound really, really old. And it's like, you know, it was generations of stories passed along, and maybe we did something similarly. And those are the stories that you put together in your music, and we can all relate to them, and that is exciting.
Well,
So,
thank you.
oh, absolutely. So, where have you been performing now that you're sort of back out on the road?
So I did, speaking of Cafe Lena earlier in our conversation, I was happy to return there in earlier in the month of July and do an album release concert in front of a live audience. Not quite full capacity, but kind of reduced capacity, but still a lot of happy folks in the room at the same time, which was absolutely delightful. And that was also live streamed as well, because the cafe has really been good throughout this whole pandemic at being out ahead of the curve when it comes to having high quality streaming, really good cameras and really good audio. So you avoid the frustrations that a lot of us artists encountered from
Right.
trying to set up some little thing in your living room and having the sound quality being less than ideal. And it was very frustrating, but Cafe Lena was always a great home for us to go to, even when there was nobody else in the room except the sound technicians and the
Right.
video guy, and just be able to get out there and reach people and have that home. So we were there earlier in July. We just did another full band gig down here in Beacon at the Town Crier, and that one was at full capacity. So that was our first full house in a year and a half probably, which was very, very exciting and gratifying. And yeah, and then coming up throughout the fall, hopefully there will be some continuation of things. I'm very excited to be teaching at a wine tasting and songwriting camp up in Racket Lake, New York, in the Adirondacks. It's called Wine, Women, and Song, and it's a women only weekend of exploring what it means to connect with your senses, and doing that in wine tasting, and then also using that to tap in creatively and compose and write songs as well.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Um, I'm not a songwriter. I can't carry a tune, so I'm not sure I would be one of your participants, but I like that idea. And I think we all need those outings right now, especially after the past year. Um, so one of the other things that I've noted over the years is that, like this event, camp that you're going to put on, okay? Um, Songwriters, musicians, they tend to create communities where there's a lot of sharing and teaching. And yet, I can't think of too many other industries where we have that kind of, collaboration. So, what makes you want to share your knowledge with a group of women who may be better than you?
Well, I think that's a two-pronged question.
Okay.
The first answer that I want to address is that I think when you're speaking about art, it's really difficult to quantitatively say whether something is better than something else or not.
Right.
There may be crafted, different elements of craft that some people excel at, definitely more than other people. And there are songs that can be definitively better than other songs for specific reasons. And when you're looking into the nuts and bolts of song construction, it is important to think about, well, these are certain rhyme schemes here, and this is why they work better for that. Or here's a very interesting melodic twist, and here's how it adds drama to this section of the song. And so those are examples of good craft, and these are ways that things could be made better. But I think, especially among women, this sense of competition is something that our industry really needs to get over itself with, and particularly when it pertains to women, because you never see a festival where they will say, well, I don't know, we have too many middle 30s guys with guitars headlining. Maybe we should, do you think we have too many? I mean, we already got the one guy with the guitar. Do we really need another one? And you never really see that approach from, not never, there are some festivals and venues that are taking a very proactive and progressive approach to this, but in general, that conversation never comes up when it pertains to a certain demographic. But there seems to be much more attention paid to, well, how many women do we have on the bill, and do we need another one, or do we have a group of this particular genre? Or, everyone talks about female fronted bands or all female bands, and I would like to see a male fronted band that's all women, and it's just interesting once you think about the language around
Right.
that in booking. So I just wanted to go off on that little tangent,
No, I'm
just in
glad you
terms of like
did. Yeah.
the angle of competition in our industry. It's not really like we are taking resources away from anyone else. And I think there's just a level of competition, particularly among women and in other demographics, that's different, and that's approached and worded differently than you see with a lot of dudes who are in headlining positions at
Got it.
different places. But that said, the reason that I think artists such as myself really enjoy kind of, well, playing live music or doing in-person camps where you get to share experiences and stuff like that all comes back to what we talked about what we all missed during the pandemic, which was that a lot of this is based on creating and sharing and reacting with community in real time, in real space. And so I think it really all just boils down to that. And I can put in as many more words as you want, but I think it's just that simple.
Well, and I think your comments are very well accepted. And when I use the word better, I like thought, am I using the right word? Um, but I like the fact that you are supportive, and you are right. Music is subjective. There once was a time, if somebody would have said, "What kind of music do you like?" I would have said 50s and 60s rock and roll. I don't need to hear anything else. And then, uh, thanks to my brother, who's in the industry, um, became well aware of so many different musicians, so many different sounds. I can go from a country western song to something um, from the 20s, or to rap. And it's like, where did this all come from? And I realized where it's come from is opening myself up, just saying, if I don't listen to it at least once, how will I know that I don't like it? And so I find it exciting when groups of musicians get together, because sometimes they learn something about themselves that maybe they weren't even thinking about. So,
Definitely. And in several years ago, I was lucky enough to take part in a State Department sponsored musical ambassadorship tour in 2012 with the band Mountain Quickstep. And we toured Kosovo and Moldova and Bulgaria and Turkey. And it really proves that I think music and food are the two universal languages. Because we had the most amazing time with everybody in every country that we went to. And it really transcended any language barriers we might have had, but there was always a way to communicate through music, and there were always good things to eat. And those are kind of, I think, the core of human connection.
absolutely.
And folk music is, it's people music. Literally, by definition, it's people music. And human stories are human stories, no matter where they're coming from, whether they're coming from rural Turkey or downtown Detroit or upstate New York. We can all find some commonality through
Absolutely.
that.
So you've been in the industry quite a while. So when was your first time on stage?
Oh my gosh, I'm not even sure I can. I'm not even sure I can remember. Probably I was probably 7 or 8, I would say. And it would likely have been when I started going to gatherings of the Adirondack Fiddlers Association in the foothills of the Southern Adirondacks. And I was definitely the youngest member at the time. And they were teaching me how to play square dance tunes. And so I was probably up with the square dance bands at that age, playing all those tunes for the dancers at their jams. And then some of those fellas went on to become musical mentors and early band members. When I started playing shows of my own, I think I was around 9 when I did
Wow.
that.
So this is basically the only life you've known is centered around music. And I think that is absolutely amazing, um, because there is music all around us if we listen. And the other day I was taking a walk, and my husband called me from work. And so I was on my speakerphone talking to him, and he could hear the birds in the background. And he said, "Are you listening to the music?" My first reaction was, "No, I'm taking a walk. I'm talking to you." He said, "Just be quiet for a second." And as I'm walking, I'm listening to all these different sounds around me. And I said, "I now hear the music." And I've noticed that a couple of times, but never really processed it in that way. But when you can open yourself up and hear the sounds and hear the beauty in the sounds around you, I mean, it just makes a whole difference in our lives. And having you coming back on stage again this year with a new release, I know we're all looking forward to it. So, how can people find it and purchase it?
Thank you. So people can go to my website, which is saramilanovic.com, and they can see the list of the tour dates that I have coming up. So the live shows on the calendar for the rest of the year are going to be posted as they come in, including performances that I'm doing either with my band or in a duo setting with my guitarist and producer partner, Greg Anderson, as well as more information if you're find yourself in the upstate New York area in mid-September and want to look into that songwriting camp that I mentioned. The information about that is going to be posted there as well. And over on the music page is a link to the album where you can order it directly, or you can download it in your choice of high resolution or not formats over at Bandcamp. And it is available on all major streaming platforms as well. But like you said earlier, as independent artists, it really helps us out a lot if you head over to an independent platform like Bandcamp, because they actually give us 85 or 90 cents on the dollar every time you purchase music from them. And it includes streaming on their app as well. So you don't have to download it directly to your device or worry about whether you have a physical CD or not. You can still access the streaming, but Spotify and YouTube and even Apple Music, they don't do much for us at all, other than just annoy us.
Yes.
So
and I totally get that. I think back to growing up, and when you would hear somebody perform on TV or went to a concert, the next thing you did was you went to the music store and you actually bought a vinyl, okay? And you took it home and you wore it out on your record player. And I find that when I go to a live concert, I always buy the CD because I know that you're probably getting more from that than you do from some of the streaming venues. And you can put that CD onto your phone and listen to it when you're walking. So, again, to all of our listeners, help out the performers, because if we don't, we're not going to see you in person. And I think that's live music is what it's really all about. So we want to wish you well with the new release. I won't be up in your area in September. I hope to be up there in November. Last year we had planned Thanksgiving with my family in Saratoga Springs. Because of the pandemic, it didn't happen. So it's back on the schedule for this year. And so for everybody else out there, please keep our country healthy so that our performers can get out. And so I can get to New York and see Sara and all my musician friends and my family.
Thank you. Yes, please, everybody. We want to get back at this. So please be careful and be safe and do what you have to do to get healthy and help us get through the other side of this. Look out for your neighbors and now's not the time to be selfish or lazy about it.
Well, again, thank you very much. And I'm glad we did this in a stable setting for our listeners. We tried this with Sara driving. She wasn't driving. She wasn't
driving.
No, she was the passenger in the car. But our internet is not stable when we're driving. So thank you again for getting up early this morning, and we will post this very shortly.
Great. Well, thanks so much for having me twice, actually, this week. And it was an absolute pleasure, as always. And hopefully you'll be able to make it out to New York in November and see your family and get out to some live music.
Absolutely. Have a great day, hon. Bye-bye.
You too. Thanks. Bye-bye.